Okay, let's try this thing again. And I say again because the first time I recorded this thought experiment, I had the wrong aux cord in connected to the microphone. We're using these wireless mics. We'll see how they work for now. But it was the wrong aux cord and did not pick up any audio. So we are going on attempt number 2 right now, which is fine. Hopefully, it'll allow me to improve my speaking and create a better experience for anyone that's listening. So, I guess to start, we'll start with what this is, which is what I see it being, and that's a thought experiment. Um, it's something that I had thought about doing for quite some time just because I have a lot of thoughts and I share them between ChatGPT, social media, my notebooks, but then, an audio and visual option sounded really appealing. So we're going to give that a go and we'll see how it sounds. And maybe these mics will work for a while and maybe they won't. And we'll just see where it goes from here. And the first thing that I thought about discussing is the idea of verbiage and the way that we use it and the way that it influences our actions. And I'll use this thought experiment as an example is that I've thought about doing this for quite some time. And the verbiage behind it was always I want to, or I will, or I should. And I find that that type of verbiage leads to non action because those are verbs that are so future tense and they have no direct action correlated to them, as opposed to using words such as I will, I'm going to, I am, and those type of phrasings often lead, at least in my experience, to action. I think it should be said that anything I say going forward and in the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds is purely just based off of my own experience. There's no right or wrong at all. It's purely just my experience and how I've come to understand my own experiences. And that being said, I noticed that a couple years ago when I was writing, I was using a lot of phrasing as far as I want to, I need to, I should. And one day I remember writing and crossing it out, and instead of writing I want to, I wrote I will. And when I looked at it, it just became so much more very real to me. And so, as we relate it back to this thought experiment that we're partaking in right now, I switched around the verbiage just today to I'm going to. When I get home, I am going to. And that put a finite date on this action. And because of that, I think that we're here right now with a camera recording, and who knows where it goes. Who knows if I'll ever release it. And I'll try to put it out on YouTube and see what happens. But it's more so for me to improve my own speaking and just get thoughts out into the open and be able to verbalize your own thoughts, because so many of our thoughts, they just stay there. They just stay in the thought realm. And when we speak them out loud or try to conceptualize them, they become much more real, and we can begin to see how they might work in reality or might not work. But otherwise, they just stay ideas, similar to this thought experiment. Um, Giving it a go and seeing where it goes and doing it because I like it. And that's pretty much it. I think maybe rewinding a bit um, into my own personal story and how I got into this very seat right here with this camera recording, we can go back all the way to the origin point, which would be, when I started playing baseball, and thinking back to how everything in my life up until COVID essentially was so perfectly and methodically planned and had gone to plan, in the sense that I started playing baseball. I acquired skills at baseball. I became good at baseball. And then as time went on, after my freshman year of high school, I got started getting recruited to Division I schools, and then I started to realize, oh, I'm really good. In comparison to everyone else, I'm really good. And so that gives you more confidence. So, I keep going with that path. Go to the University of Oregon, boom, play every game just as I had planned to. Then, okay, on my own want, I went to junior college, Chipola Junior College, win a national championship. Boom, check that. Then I go to the University of Alabama, play well there, and then I get drafted, and boom, we're right on track. Tick, 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 on track, right where I'm headed. Which at this point, my goal was to be a big leaguer. That was what I saw my worth being, was a Major League Baseball player. If I can do that, that means I will have succeeded. It was that simple. And so, I go play short season. I remember immediately getting into short season and thinking, this is not what I had idealized it to be. But whatever, I'll keep playing. They paid me. I got a bonus. I'll keep playing. So immediately then, subconsciously, the purity of the game of baseball was diminished. This was now a business, and I think everyone who's played a sport for a living realizes that, especially at the highest levels. Professional, affiliated baseball, basketball, football, soccer, hockey, whatever it may be. But when you're at the highest level and you're in that matrix of what an organization is, you then realize, oh, I see it for what it is. And so, we go to COVID, or we go to spring training, rather, and, they send us home from spring training. So I go back, kind of working out, staying ready. May comes around, which is about 11 months from when I had been drafted, and I get a call that I've been released. Okay, well, this isn't aligned with the plan that I had for the last 15 years. This isn't how it was supposed to go. And anyone who's ever been released or fired or whatever it may be, that you're not talking yourself back into the job. The decision's already made. It's done. That's it. So, okay. I go throughout the summer. I train, thinking that I deserve a job. Thinking that I'm owed something, very much so. And that never happens. No job comes around. And as guys started going back to affiliate, I just got very sensitive. I felt like I was owed something, that I was wronged in some way. And so COVID did a few things for me, in the sense that one, showed me that life was definitely okay without baseball. I came to that realization. But before I was able to get to that realization, I went into a very dark place. I was, depressed, just in a bad physiological and psychological state. I was staying up late, waking up late. I was still working out and training in a sense, but it was more just out of spite. It was out of anger. It wasn't healthy. It didn't make me feel good. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was scrolling on YouTube, as I did every night during that time. And I find a video by Vice, a documentary on Wim Hof, the Iceman. Okay, so I watch it. It's 45 to an hour long, and I'm like, damn, that guy's badass. Like, it's really cool. So then I type in Wim Hof breathing method. Okay, on YouTube, there's an 11-minute version. Boom. I lay down in my bed. It's like 2 a.m. I do it. And I remember just feeling so different than I had felt in ever before, specifically the months previous. But I laid there and just had like a very clear mind and body. And from there, I was like, okay, well, that's different. So I built it into my routine. I just started doing it every day. And then I started implementing ice baths. Rather, I didn't start implementing ice baths. I started implementing ice or cold showers. And I would do, cold showers for 10, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, working my way up, and eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to go into I need to challenge myself more. So how can I do that? Okay, well, it's December-ish in Seattle. I'll go to the Puget Sound. I'll sit in there for as long as it takes, just see what happens. And tracing it back to the point about verbiage, as we go back to verbiage, using the phrases like I'm going to, I will, I am. I had made it an obligation to do it on that Saturday because of the verbiage that I had been using previously. And so, telling myself a week I'm going to, I will, not I want to, I should. And so by that time when Saturday rolled around, it was like it was an obligation. Like I had already committed to myself to do it. I remember waking up and I remember the weather just being nasty. So an easy excuse, but again, I made this into an obligation for myself to do it. And so I went down to the Puget Sound, which is about 5 minutes from my house, and it was probably a little less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But when you're in open water and the water's splashing around, it feels a lot colder than a 40-degree cold tub. You're not building any thermal heat around your body, not building that thermal layer. And so I go in there and I sit in the ocean for as long as it takes. I don't remember how long it was, probably 7, 8 minutes. Water splashing, hitting me. And I remember the feeling of getting in the car and shivering on the way back up, but I felt like I had accomplished something. I didn't know what it was, but I completed a difficult task. And I remember how good that felt. So unrelated to baseball or athletics or anything like that, but just purely internal, an internal win. And so from there I continued the Wim Hof breathing and the cold exposure. I took that with me as I went to go play independent baseball. And I also shifted my goals from wanting to be a big leaguer to let's just see how good I can get. Let's just attempt to maximize my potential and see where that gets me. And let go of the end result that I wanted, which was to be a big leaguer, and just make it a process oriented goal, which let's see how good I can get. And so I went to independent baseball and played for the Kansas City Monarchs. And then there I wasn't playing every day, but I was committed to my process of just seeing how good I can get. And I also had made the deal with myself, like if this is the last year that I ever get to play baseball, that's totally fine with me because I had seen that life was fine without the game on the other side. And so as the season progresses, I work into an everyday role and end up winning Rookie of the Year in the league. We win the championship and just had the most fantastic experience of a team that I've maybe ever taken part of. I mean, USA Baseball, we won a gold medal, and Junior College, we won a national championship, and all those experiences are unique in their own way when a team comes together in that way. But when you do it for an entire professional season, it's much different. It's almost deeper in a sense because that's months and months and months, much longer. I guess college is similar, but that one felt different. Also with the previous experience that I had gone through to get there. Anyways, I go and then I sign with the Kansas City Royals, and I remember going to spring training, and it hit me again that my goal was not to be in the big leagues. It was just to maximize my potential. And if the big leagues came about from it, then absolutely that's cool. But by all means, I had accomplished the goal I had set out for myself, and I proved myself right. I didn't prove anyone else wrong. I just proved myself right that I knew I could get back to this level of baseball. and I did that through attempting to maximize my own potential. So I went and played 2 years with the Royals of AAA, and then as I become a free agent, signed with the Mariners, and I recognized, again, back when I had signed with the Royals, or really when I had been released, that playing baseball was not going to be my ultimate way of servicing other people in some way. And so baseball was always just a medium, as it is now, for exploration. And so, when I got released this summer, I went to Spain for a month, and I began to think about, okay, how can I impact other people, and what changed my own career, and it was breath work. Going back to the Wim Hof, which I had continued to do throughout my career, and the Wim Hof, as I continued to practice it, led into transcendental meditation, yoga, other types of meditations and mindfulness practices. And that's expanded even in the last few months with getting the chance to go to different countries and experience somatic practicing, or different sports psychologists, or different breathwork practitioners, breathwork classes, and just trying to understand through experience. That's all. That's my only goal ever now, is really to just gain some level of understanding through experience, and sometimes that understanding doesn't take place until the experience is long gone, and sometimes it takes place as the experience is taking place. But that's not for me to decide. My only goal is to experience in itself. And in order to experience, for me, I use baseball now as the tool, the medium, in order to allow me to experience. It allowed me to go to Australia a couple months ago and play out there, which allowed me to go to Bali, and just so it happenstance meet a breathwork somatic practitioner and work with her for a week and learn from her, and then go back to the States, and now I'm out in Germany playing essentially German independent baseball. But there's a certain pride in it that's very authentic, and I enjoy that part of it very much. And none of this would have been possible if I didn't get released back in 2020 during COVID, and had these low points that have led me to the place that I'm at right now. And it's just been such a fun ride up until this point, and just creating an understanding that baseball is just the medium, and so now my purpose, or what I want to do, what I feel drawn to do, is to help other people, and help create some type of space through the breath, because that's all that the breath work essentially does, is create some type of awareness. If we go back to the use of verbiage and how we're speaking, that awareness is only created through breath work, and creating some type of internal awareness to recognize what verbiage I'm using, okay, and then how is that impacting my actions or my thoughts or my beliefs. And when we utilize breath work to create some level of understanding, we're able to create the space necessary to create those recognition patterns, or that level of awareness. And that's where the fun really is, because the awareness, it never stops. It's continual. And the amount of awareness, or to the level or the depth that you create awareness through mindfulness practices or holistic practices, is completely subjective, which is the most fun part, is that there's no tangible outcome from breath work. You will not run faster or jump higher or any of those things. And they might happen, but it's not like weightlifting in that sense. It's completely subjective how it's going to impact your own body. And I guess weightlifting in a sense is subjective, but there are tangible benefits that happen if you do this many times. The only thing that happens through breathwork is you create some level of awareness, and the depth of that awareness is totally up to you and your body and your physiology and your psychology, and all the avenues that it can lead you down, but it just creates that open door effect where you walk through it and then you start to notice different synchronicities within your life. You start to begin a path of different exploration into optimization, both professionally and personally, and that becomes just the journey that we're on, and specifically that I'm on. And I can only speak from my own point of view and from what I've encountered with the people that I've had the opportunity to work with and how they've resonated with the practice itself, and it's just been a creating of awareness. But I'll try to keep all of the anecdotes from my own personal experiences because that's all I can truly speak to. And so as we begin to close this first thought experiment, I have one more thought, which is just the level of friction that I notice in the United States as opposed to countries abroad. And it's interesting as I'm here in Regensburg, Germany, which is about 45 minutes east of Munich, and the town is decent size, about 200,000 people. It's a university town, but they only built buildings 5 or 6 stories high. And it's a much different environment when the buildings are only built to that height. And I haven't been able to put my exact finger on what the different feeling is, but it's much lower friction than in the United States. And I've noticed that across the world, and it doesn't have to do specifically with the height of the buildings. That's just one observation that I've had here. But, I wake up in America whenever I go back, and I just feel a certain level of friction, no matter where I'm at, really there. Maybe out in nature is a little different, but at least in Seattle or Arizona or different places, there's just a certain level of friction. And when I wake up abroad, it's a much softer entry into the day, which maybe that is probably a completely subjective feeling, but it's just something that I've noticed as I continue to navigate my way through the world. And so as we come to a close on this first thought experiment, my original goal is to keep this somewhere between 25 and 35 and 40 minutes. Maybe as I get more comfortable or have more things to talk about or get more precise in my ability to switch from topic to topic, it'll expand or it'll contract. I don't know. That's really been my goal for the entire year, is to simplify and expand. And something I've been learning about throughout this year is duality and what it means, and how all-encompassing it really is. The idea that in order to grow, you have to simplify. And I think it goes back to Plato's Symposium, a book that I'm reading right now. And as Socrates is talking about the idea of knowledge, and in order to gain more knowledge, you have to let go of things that no longer serve you. You can't just continue to fill up this bowl and not release anything else, which is a lot of what I've learned from breathwork and somatic practicing, is letting go of things that no longer serve me in order to take in what does. And so I think that speaks very clearly to the goal that I set out with at the beginning of the year, which is to simplify and grow. How can I, clean up my mind and body and connect it in a more fluid way? And in order to do that, that creates simplicity. But I also want to grow, which means I want to expand, and sometimes expanding comes from contraction. And so as we end this episode, I leave it with a question that we'll begin next episode with is, what happens when we stop trying to get something from every experience? What happens when we stop trying to get something from every experience? So that is the end of this first thought experiment.